Up to this point, we've talked about a lot of different things inside SolidWorks, some basic tools that we need to know in order to design our parts. But now I want to get started talking about some specific examples. And the first of those is going to be a machined part. Most of the time when people start to get into the CAD world, they need to design parts that need to be manufactured. These are going to be machined parts or welded parts or whatever the case is. You need to have a good foundation, understand the geometry that you're making on the screen and how it relates to the real world. So to get started, we're going to talk about this machined part we see on the screen. The part that we have here is going to be an adjustment screw. Now this screw has several different things that we need to consider. Things like threaded holes, center section that's threaded, some tapers, different areas where we need to really understand the limitations of machining as well as how we can actually design our parts. So the first topic I want to cover is design intent and how to plan for your machined parts. Now, the first thing I always do whenever I start to design a machined part is I really want to figure out what the function has to be. Now, in this case, we have a hex body that needs to be grabbed by hand. We have some threads in the middle, and then we have a tapered end that needs to seat. So this is all very important information, and this is geometry that you should know going into designing your part. We also have a few things like tapped holes. Knowing what size holes you need to use ahead of time can be a very important thing to know, especially if you're machining them in-house. Know what sorts of taps and dies you have on hand, what threads that you need in order to engage other parts, and so on. So again, very important information. And the last thing I really like to know before I get started designing parts, if I'm going to be doing the machining and programming, what tools do I have on hand? Am I limited by certain geometry that I can machine? For instance, if the smallest tool that I have is going to be a 10 millimeter radius bit, I need to make sure that none of my internal fillets are smaller than that. Otherwise, I won't actually be able to machine them. So things like these are very, very important as we get into designing these parts. Now, if you're going to be shipping these out to be manufactured somewhere else, these are also very important features because knowing how small you can go down on certain features or what types of things will add to the overall manufacturing cost of your part can go a long way, especially if you're making just one or two of these, or if you're making a very large run of these manufactured parts. This type of information can be very handy.